Cinesmack contains spoilers of the spoiling type. If you don't want your spoilers spoiled, please turn back now. Otherwise, enjoy the show! Hello, Cinesmack-teers. Welcome back to another bout of Cinesmack. This is Mike, and joining me are my co-hosts, Mr. Sam Twomey.
Good evening.
Mr. Mark Johnson.
Hello, everybody.
Mr. Tom Haggis.
How's it going, everybody?
And Mr. Gabe Rowald.
Greetings, my 7 deadly fans.
Nice.
I was trying to make it topical.
Yeah, I've really been looking forward to this. As we kind of talked about before we started recording. Yeah, this one's pretty cool to me. So, should we get going? Should we start it off? Do I need to poke the monkey again with the bell?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, just go for it, Mike.
All right, here, I'll just poke him. Here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, he's, she's, and he-she's, welcome to the main event. Tonight, in the blue corner, released in 2007, directed by David Fincher, starring Mark Ruffalo, Jake Gyllenhaal, and Robert Downey Jr., the terror of San Francisco, Zodiac! In the red corner, released in 1995, directed by David Fincher, starring Morgan Freeman, Brad Pitt, and Kevin Spacey, the Sultan of the 7 Deadly Sins, 7! All right, there we go.
So did he really say he, she's, and he, she's?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes,
I just want to be sure.
Yes, he did, Mark. Yes, he did.
That's phenomenal.
All right. Well, as usual, we will be going through our 4 categories: writing, acting, directing, and, of course, the overall. And at the end, we will, I won't. The bean counters will. They'll count up the votes, and we'll see who won. So let's get going on our first category, the first round, which is writing. All right, who wants to start us off tonight?
Tom
I'll
does.
take it. Yeah, I'll take it.
Yeah, I knew it.
I'll step up.
All right.
One of the interesting things when I was watching Zodiac, actually probably watching the credits of Zodiac, because I'll be honest with you, I didn't really know the story of the Zodiac Killer. I knew that it was out there, but I didn't know how it concluded. And then I'm watching the credits, and I was just amazed that they were able to get this movie made. I mean, just imagine the writer and the director sitting down and trying to pitch this to a studio, and the studio executive saying, "But how does it end?" Because it just kind of peters out over 15 years towards the end,
right.
And it doesn't really have a satisfying ending to it. And I was really surprised that I guess I wasn't surprised. I guess I was surprised that it was made, but not surprised that it took so long for this movie to come to the screen, in a big Hollywood way that it did. So I'd have to say that I thought that the writing for 7, is that who I voted for? Yeah. All right. Yeah. The writing for 7 was better. Just because it really kind of had that, beginning and middle and end. And that I found it much more satisfying. I thought the writing in Zodiac was really good because it kept us engaged in a story that didn't have an ending. But I was kind of an idiot and didn't know that. I imagine somebody else might not think that. But yeah, so I'm going to have to. I thought 7's writing was better.
All right, Gabe.
Yeah, I think overall I agree with Tom in that 7's writing is probably better. Also, because it's, I feel like it's from, it's original material, whereas Zodiac is actually based on the book written by what's his name, David Grayfield or whatever his name is. What's his name? Robert Graysmith. Sorry, not even close. Yeah, so it's actually based on a book, and because you feel like because it's a historical piece, it's based on actual events and actual people, that there's not a lot of writing per se that goes on. It's kind of like it's more like reciting. Here's what happened. Here are the players. Here are the events. We already know these things happened. We can't vary from them too much. And honestly, even the construction of the film didn't vary too much from a chronological telling of these events. So it's not even like the writing came in and kind of rearranged it a little bit to make it more exciting. Now, don't get me wrong, I did enjoy it and I was engaged, but I feel from a writing standpoint and from a creativity standpoint that Se7en was probably superior.
Let's go to Mark.
Yeah, I agree with what everyone's saying so far. Se7en wasn't based on real life events or anything, so it sort of gets to choose its stakes, and the whole film, as these murders mount up, it just sort of you build and build and build and build to Sunday, to this incredible finale. And the whole time I was watching Zodiac, I really couldn't quite tell where it was going. I didn't know what this movie was kind of what it was about going into it. I know it was about the Zodiac killer, but I didn't know if it was a profile of a serial killer. I didn't know if it was someone's take on obsession and what it can do to people. I didn't know if it was solely made to tell the story of the Zodiac killer based on all these accounts and all these records that have been kept over the years. I never quite got the grasp of what the writer was going for in the movie. It was very interesting and well done, but I wasn't sure if they were trying to tell a story or what they're trying to convey in the writing.
Okay. All right. Sam.
Well, I do agree with a number of the points that everyone has brought up about the writing of Zodiac, in that it's a biopic, and so in a way it's harder to make it something other than just reciting of the news events. But the writer, James Vanderbilt, he did do a very big adaptation on that original book. They actually, him and Fincher went back and waded through a lot of the original documents and eliminated some things that were considered hearsay. Like, he did a lot of work to get factually correct Zodiac. But overall, the writing really, to me, just doesn't compare to Se7en. The way that the story was structured, the dynamic characters, and the way the writer kind of brought us in at the very beginning. So we kind of felt, like Mills, I believe, that we were kind of coming into the situation and learning about it just as he was. And the one thing that really sealed the deal for me when we talk about writing is one of my favorite lines from Se7en, when Mills is talking about the killer, and he basically says, just because the fucker's got a library card doesn't make him fucking Yoda. And that, that to me excused the line that was, "Ladies and gentlemen, we have ourselves a homicide." Like, that really, I have always hated that line. But for me, Se7en definitely wins in the writing category.
All right. Wow. Looks like we're kind of unanimous for the writing. Just some little extra trivia here for you. In Zodiac, Shane Salerno optioned the Robert Graysmith book, Zodiac, when he was just 19 years old, and developed it with Graysmith for several years before selling it to Disney's Touchstone Pictures in a 7-figure deal. Salerno wrote several drafts of the screenplay before multiple administration changes at Touchstone derailed the project. If you guys were approached with, let's say your studio execs, and you were approached with a pitch like this, and is a high-profile case, is a pretty good book from what I've read, not the book, but reviews and stuff, would you guys have greenlit it?
No.
Yeah, I think I would have had a hard time greenlighting it because, when I was watching it, I was like, this movie is really kind of a period piece. Mm-hmm. I mean, in order to do this well, which they did, you have to go through. It spans. I think the movie spans roughly 23 years.
Okay,
and just think of all the, the changes that happen in 23 years. Costume changes, hairstyle changes, products, buildings, vehicles. It's like a period piece, but maybe even more than one period piece all in one. And just think of the expense it takes to do a period piece.
Right.
To do all the authentic looking costumes and all the authentic looking props and sets. I would have but now, that being said, knowing that David Fincher was behind the wheel, I might have thought twice and said, if anybody can pull it off, he can pull it off.
All right.
I would have said hell yes if you have some kind of JFK type ending where you present a stronger case about what the public doesn't know. It's so instead of slowly unwinding toward the end of the 15 minutes, you really reveal something big and go for that JFK style. And with the star power at the time, they thought they were going to get big bumps from like Robert Downey Jr. And especially Jake Gyllenhaal. So hell yeah, I would have greenlit it. It would have been a chance, but again, like Gabe said, Fincher was there and in on it. So why not roll it?
I don't know. Per IMDb, it says this film cost $65 million to make, and I don't know if I could, in good conscience, take a script that's was probably 157 pages and a $65 million budget and really kind of didn't have an ending. I don't know if I could okay that. If you tell me it's $30 million and a 2-hour film, then I'm more likely to do that. But under those circumstances, I couldn't agree to that.
All right. Go ahead, Tom.
I was going to just say one thing with it. For me, it's that that feeling that you have, that internal feeling when you walk out of a theater. That's what kind of hangs with you. And if I was a studio exec and they're pitching it to me, and I go, so how do you wrap it up? That the killer dies in jail, and the killer dies, and we never really find out, concretely who did it. And like, oh, we'll put a graphic up on the screen at the end, and then roll the credits. I'd be like, oh, that's going to go over real well, yeah, because film goers love to read. So
okay, and the other thing I was just thinking is that anytime a movie gets greenlit, they always say to themselves, what's the audience for this film? Who's going to go see this movie? And I got to think this movie came out in 2007, approximately 30, 40 years after this guy was, making waves. Who remembers that, and who's going to remember it enough to go see it in droves if I'm going to spend $65 million on it?
Well, and honestly, I think someone who greenlit it was like, oh, this is a chance for an Oscar. I don't know if it was really put out there for a certain audience, more or less than them, grabbing these very talented actors, putting them on screen and doing a period piece, which, come on, it sometimes wins Oscars, but this one, didn't. But
yeah, it was definitely a prestige picture, and it kind of felt like that.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Well, and it's also where Fincher was working at the time. Like, he was almost going to be attached to Black Dahlia, and so he was kind of in that. His range of options were of pictures of these types, and he kind of took the deal that he thought would work out best for him. And I totally agree with Mark that the budget. It could have been a lot better, and I was going to talk about that a little bit in the directing side.
Okay. All right. Just right before we go on to the next round, the original script for Seven had a strange dwarf-like woman as part of the forensic team, appearing in every one of the quote-unquote cleanups after a murder and hurling foul language and epitaphs at Somerset and Mills. So, I wonder why they cut that out. Who knows? All right.
It's probably because the little person from Poltergeist died, and she would have been perfect.
Oh, well, that's true. There you go.
That's true.
You heard it here first.
No one,
Send this back.
no one from the Lollipop Guild could be contacted for further insight. Here we go. Round 2, acting. Wow, he's on it tonight.
Yeah, good monkey.
Yeah, very good monkey. All right, let's go ahead and we'll start where we stopped last time. Sam.
Well, you talk about acting, you have to talk about Morgan Freeman and how much he really brings to a picture, especially if he is committed to it. And at the time, you have really kind of an unproven Brad Pitt, even though he'd done several films. He wasn't quite up to the level. But the two of them, their chemistry was perfect. The supporting cast, Kevin Spacey, really amazing for the short amount of time that he's on screen. His impact is huge. You also have Arlie Ermy as in there as the boss, and Gwyneth Paltrow. I liked the cast very much in Seven. There was some good moments in Zodiac. Jake Gyllenhaal was really hot at the time. Mark Ruffalo turns in a great performance. Anthony Edwards, good to see him again. Hadn't seen him for a while when he was in there.
Just to interrupt you real quick, I thought that was Kevin Costner.
The small
you thought
thing
Anthony Edwards was Kevin Costner?
Yes,
And,
like
teamed
Sam's
with,
still going.
great camera work. I have to give it 7.
Did you hear us at all, Sam? Sam? Hello, Sam.
Yep.
Yeah, hey, I said Kevin Costner, or not Kevin, Anthony Edwards, when I was first looking at him, I swore to God it was Kevin Costner. Like, I didn't mean to talk over you there, but you chose 7 then, right?
Yeah, for sure,
Okay.
7.
All right. Mark?
Wow, Sam really took a lot of my bullet points. I mean, I was going to start with Morgan Freeman. I think he gives the strongest performance of either film. I mean, you got Brad Pitt, Morgan Freeman, Gwyneth Paltrow at the top. You've got like Arlie Ermy, Bat and Cleanup, and you have Shaft, Richard Roundtree, as just sort of this throw-in role. I mean, you got Shaft as like this, supporting guy. I mean, it's kind of a murderer's row. And when you get to the third act of Zodiac, and you got Mark Ruffalo, who I still think is the cinematic Chris Bosch, and you have Goose from Top Gun trying to figure out who the Zodiac killer is, I just didn't think they could get the job done. I just didn't have faith in those two. Robert Downey Jr. had sort of checked out, and I'm just like, I don't think I think they can eat all the animal crackers in the world, and it's not going to help them figure out who's causing these murders. So.
I was actually waiting for Goose to hit a canopy every time he got out of the car.
Although Zodiac does get a bonus point for featuring John Terry, who was a Christian Shepherd on Lost, so I did enjoy seeing him.
All right, Gabe.
Yeah, I mean, how can you go wrong with Morgan Freeman? I mean, he's just so good. And Brad Pitt, he's one of those sons of bitches that you want to hate because he's attractive and he's talented and he's smart, and you just want to hate him, but you can't because he's attractive and he's talented and he's smart. He's like that Hugh Jackman guy, or I don't know.
Justin Bieber.
You just no. Well, he's not in that category. I'm sorry, but like even Ben Affleck and Matt Damon, those bastards. They're you want to hate him, but he's really so good. On one level, you feel like he might be cast in a role that's not really a stretch for him. Like he could just kind of be himself a little bit and still be successful in that role. But I don't think that's necessarily true. I think he really took that character and made Mills' character his own. And I don't know. I just think that Brad Pitt is really excellent. Now, the cast for Zodiac is really an excellent cast as well. And I think they did a really great job. But again, as far as originality, they're based on real people. And now I don't know how closely they're based on those real people. I don't know if those actors spent time, with those people or studying those people to play those characters. But you feel like they don't have as much leeway to interpret those characters. So I feel like with Seven, the acting is definitely superior.
All right, Tom.
Oh my God, Brad Pitt was awful in Seven. I thought he was.
What?
I think he's a great actor, and I think he's one of the best actors out there. But going back and watching this, and I'll be honest, I haven't seen it in about 10 or 12 years. It's been a long time since I sat down and watched Seven. But seeing how great he is in, Jesse James and Babel and even in Glorious Bastards, he has come a very long way since Seven. I thought, with the exception of the final scene, he was really good in the last scene. Not the showdown scene in the desert, but like when he's actually in the police car driving away.
Whatever.
The showdown scene was really good. He was really good in that. But the rest of the movie, it was just so forced, and he was doing just a lot of the Brad Pitt cliches that he's really gotten really good at shedding and getting rid of. And he was awesome in Fight Club. But I just, for some reason, I'm watching this and I go, I can see why people really didn't like him back then, because he really wasn't that good in it. And Morgan Freeman was great, but I thought Brad Pitt's acting was really, really just wasn't that good. Whereas Zodiac, on the other hand, Mark Ruffalo, I don't know if there's an actor that acts with less effort than Mark Ruffalo. I mean, the guy just delivers his lines. I don't know if you guys saw the Kids Are All Right, but I mean, he always looks like he's just hanging out in the movie. He's so natural. And Robert Downey Jr. was awesome as always, even though, like, I don't know, like 2/3 of the way through the movie, he just kind of like fades off. I don't know. He just I don't know where he went.
He had to go film Iron Man.
Jake Gyllenhaal, he was so. He's also somebody that's really gotten much better, since then. But I thought, and I think Brad Pitt's great. I love him. I always look for his movies nowadays, but I found his performance painful in Seven. So, I'd have to say overall I'd give it to the Zodiac cast. My apologies to Mr. Freeman.
All right. Let's see here. Daniel Craig was originally the first choice for Paul Avery in Zodiac. So just imagine that. Also, Jake Gyllenhaal was David Fincher's first choice, but his second choice was Orlando Bloom. So just imagine just kind of how different that would have been. And then for Seven, REM's Michael Stipe was once considered for the role of John Doe. Can you believe that? And Denzel Washington.
He's kind of creepy.
He'd be like shiny ham as he's killing people.
No, he would have probably been good, but he wouldn't have been as good as Kevin Spacey.
True. Denzel Washington turned down the part that went to Brad Pitt, telling Entertainment Weekly that the film was too dark and evil. But I want to point out something. One of my favorite, I don't know if you'd call it a horror film, but Fallen. He's in that, and that's pretty dark. And it's not as dark as Seven, but it's still dark. So
but then he wouldn't want to play it against Morgan Freeman because he wouldn't have worked.
Right? Yeah. Well, that's very true. Also, it's R. Lee Ermey originally tried out for John Doe, but after they had seen Kevin Spacey and met with him, they offered Ermey the role of the captain, of the police chief. So
wow, that would totally change those Geico ads that he's in now.
Yes, it would.
Well, it's interesting. I had the opportunity to listen to the commentary on Seven the other night, and they cover a lot of those points. And they said that his performance was good, but it was just too strange, and they really wanted Kevin Spacey, and they just had to try and get enough money to get him.
Right, and didn't Kevin Spacey turn down the top billing because he didn't want to give away the movie that like he's in it, so that people would be looking for him, from what I understand. Did they say that on the commentary, Sam?
They did not address that.
Okay. Yeah, like he totally said that he didn't want to be anywhere on the posters, like anywhere like that, because he was afraid it would give away his part. because really throughout the whole film, you're like wondering, who is this guy? Who is it? And then it turns up it's Kevin Spacey, and it's like, hey, I've seen you before. Sorry. One other thing I want to add, just because I'm a huge Bullet fan. Dave Toschi in real life was the inspiration for Steve McQueen's performance in Bullet. In the film, Graysmith mentions that Toschi wears his gun like Bullet. Avery replies that Bullet got it from Toschi, or Toshi, or however you say his name. So, that just made me smile. But Mark Ruffalo, I've got to go back to what Tom said about Mark Ruffalo, is I was watching it, and all I could think of was, God, he makes that look easy, but also he reminded me a lot of Columbo. Did any of you guys ever watch Columbo?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, like just kind of there and really laid back and easygoing, and it just really reminded me of Columbo, of Peter.
Maybe not so squinty eyed, but
right.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah. So, would you guys have picked anyone different for either film? I'll take.
I think Donald Duck would have been better in the Brad Pitt role in Seven. To be honest with you.
Oh wow! Tom, we're just going to have to respectfully disagree on that, because I thought Brad Pitt did a good job in that, and and I can't imagine anybody but Brad Pitt and Morgan Freeman in those roles.
I can't either. And I was going to come in and be very respectful of Brad Pitt and go, he wasn't really that good. But just hearing this Brad Pitt love parade for the last 10 minutes, I'm like, oh my God, we need some counterweight. So, yeah.
Well, I'll meet Gabe and Tom halfway in the middle. Like, there was some parts of the performance I thought Brad Pitt has gotten a lot better. But then the more I thought about it, some of the things I didn't like about Brad Pitt is some of the lines that were written and not that they were badly written, but just that his character was not from the big city. So he was kind of a little more ignorant and, cocky. And so it wasn't the best performance, but some of it too was, just the nastiness of his character, kind of stupidity of his character.
Right. Yeah. All right. That's a valid point. I never really thought of it like that. Anyone else? Mark?
Yeah, I don't... I don't know. See, I keep calling Mark Ruffalo the cinematic Chris Bosh because he is kind of a third wheel, and he goes out there and he can score 20 points and get 10 rebounds, and he doesn't look like he's exerting any effort. And I don't know. I'm just totally on board with all the Mark Ruffalo comments. But I don't know who I'd replace with anybody. If I'm doing any replacing, it's Zodiac. I feel like sort of the top three of Gyllenhaal, Ruffalo, and Downey Jr. could have gotten a little bump somewhere, but I don't know who I'd recast.
Okay, and I want to share with you guys my favorite line from Zodiac, and that is when Jake's getting coffee from Shorty and goes, "Does it bother you people call you Shorty?" He goes, "Does it bother you people call you retard?"
Yeah, that was pretty good.
Oh man, I rewound it and again, just the look on Jake's face was awesome. So. All right, let's move on to round number 3, which is directing. Go, monkey. Oh, no, he's not doing it. We jinxed him. All right,
Spank
go, monkey.
that monkey.
Spank it. There we go. All right, directing. Let's start with Tom.
I thought Fincher did a really great job. The shots were well chosen. I should probably say what movie I'm talking about. Seven. His work in Seven was really, really great. But again, I'm going to have to go with Zodiac because I thought what was really cool about watching these two movies side by side, and I mean not literally side by side, that'd be really weird, but watching them back to back was I could see a lot of the stuff in Seven that he wanted to do, but he didn't quite have the maturity with the camera to figure out exactly how he wanted to do it. Whereas in Zodiac, the overhead shots where he's looking down on the car and the camera is like locked to the car as it goes around the corners and through the maze of streets in San Francisco was amazing. And you could kind of see him want to do that in Seven, but not figure out how to do it. The tension in Zodiac was much more palpable than it was in Seven because I didn't know where it was going in Zodiac. I thought the directing in Zodiac, while they were very similar, it seemed like I was watching the work of a third grader in Seven and the work of a sixth grader in Zodiac. Not just metaphorically, that you could see that he'd really grown up. And
I thought you were talking about Brad Pitt again.
No. So I'd have to say the stuff in Zodiac. It was much more directing, and boy, he kept me engaged in a story that didn't have an ending, and kudos for that.
Hey, Mike, I'm getting some feedback. Do you hear that?
Yeah, I just got it a little bit. I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened there. Let's go with Mark.
Definitely David Fincher. I like David Fincher's work in this. Zodiac seemed to me just overall kind of not all over the place, but there's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of stories and incidents to recount, and a lot of people trying to figure out who is doing what. And they didn't have the internet back then, which really frustrated me. I think they could have spread the word a lot faster. So all these different precincts, they just had the internet. So there's a lot of stuff going on, and I don't know if as the director he could have maybe reduced the amount of attention those scenes got, but I felt some of that was maybe a little bit unnecessary. And Jake Gyllenhaal's performance, I know that this is kind of going back to the acting, but I really wish David Fincher could have gotten a little bit more out of him towards the end when we're really just mostly with him alone. I don't feel like he he didn't seem like he was capable of pursuing this guy, and we see his life falling apart around him, and the whole thing just seemed off to me. The third act of this just seems so running at 80% speed of the rest of the film, and I guess I'm gonna put it on Fincher, the director, for that. I get what Tom's saying as far as Seven being the third grade experience and Zodiac being the sixth grade, but and I could also tell that he wasn't quite getting everything that he wanted, but still I think he did a pretty awesome job in Seven, and I have to go with the 1995 film Seven.
All right, Sam.
Well, I'm going to be so bold and make the joke for the third time that I like David Fincher's work, and I think he's going to win this round.
You rebel.
I know, right? Gabe, go for a fourth time, and it'll be equally unfunny then.
I will. I'll do
it. I understand Tom's points, quite a bit. And there was some cool things going on with Zodiac being largely shot on digital, except for a few of the murder scenes that were actually shot on film. But with this huge budget, almost double what Seven was, I don't feel you get the same bang for your buck. And part of that is due to what we talked about earlier in the writing, the fact that, when you leave the theater, you're kind of unfulfilled. And on Seven, part of the magic of that film is that he filmed in a lot of very close spaces. It was hard for him to get his camera anywhere, but he wanted to keep that closeness to really, kind of give that feeling that these characters feel trapped and they're kind of all forced together. When it comes down to it, I really think that if you look at the box office and the overall worldwide performance of both films, Seven did less with more, and a few tweaks on Brad Pitt's performance side. You got to go with Seven, and then also think about before the first time you see each of these movies, and the second time, with Seven you don't have the surprise, but that first time that you're in the theater, when you first see Kevin Spacey, you're kind of like, who is this? Where's this going? And it takes off, and boom, it pays off within 15 minutes of the end. Like, it gives you, it builds and goes to a place that you don't expect. So, on that aspect, I really have to say that for me, Fincher is at his best at Seven, and some of the films that come right after that really kind of improve on that. But in one last image I want to leave you with is the way the flashlights cut through the darkness, and how some of the films that print had to be so dark in those theaters. that is unusual, but just the way the light cut through it and made you feel as that searcher that you're looking to with that beam of what's in this crazy place that we're in. So again, 7.
All right, Gabe.
Wow, yeah. What can I say? Fincher versus Fincher. I really don't know who's going to come out ahead here, but I had to do it. Sam made me do it. Yeah, well, I have to say that that 7 is one of my favorite movies of all time. And one of the things I like about it is that it seems kind of untraditional in many ways. In sometimes in obvious ways, and in simple things like running the credits backwards from the bottom up. It seems kind of trivial, but it's kind of like, oh, hey, I've never seen that before. It's kind of interesting, and just the introduction into the movie and the pacing of the movie is so different. It's very methodical. It's very calculated, but it's not. I never feel like bored during any of it. So I just feel like it's really composed differently than many movies that I've ever seen for some reason. Whereas Zodiac, it really isn't all that different. And I had mentioned before that it wasn't really there wasn't really kind of any interesting take on the timeline. It was very chronological. It was almost on a certain level kind of documentary in style. Mm-hmm. And I don't feel like it was necessarily David Fincher's strongest approach to a film timeline and being creative with the timeline and presenting this very factual stuff in a very creative way. While I think, like Tom was saying, it's clearly a more mature work, but I think that's what I like about 7 is that it's a little bit brash, it's a little bit bold, it's a little bit immature, which gives it kind of a little bit more interest. So I don't know. The one thing about Fincher to me is that he is meticulous. This guy is all about detail. And I think that gets reflected sometimes in the budgets that we're talking about. He'll do things until he gets it right. And he won't give up until he gets the funding to do things the way he wants to do it. Right. Because he's very, very particular. Probably just almost painfully anal retentive about these things. But that's what I like about his work. There's such an attention to detail that you can rewatch any one of these movies and see something different that you hadn't seen. And I love that about both of these movies. But in the end, I feel like because 7 feels like a little bit of a departure from the ordinary to me, that I feel like that's a stronger effort in directing on his part.
All right. Well, yeah. I mean, like you said, he gets the details in there, just like when Jake Gyllenhaal's driving his son to school, and you hear the radio announcer talking about the free Rolling Stones concert. And Zodiac was shot in 110 days, for anyone that cares, and it was edited using Final Cut Pro.
Yay.
7 at exactly 7 minutes into the film, Mills picks up the phone to be called over to the gluttony scene, and all the building numbers in the opening scene start with 7.
Never noticed that. And see, that's what I mean.
And the climactic delivery was scheduled for 7 p.m. Like it's those little details for like you were talking about. So
yeah, I just want to kind of real quick interject here. It seems like though, and I mean, I gave my writing point to 7, and it is those points, but it seems like those are all to the benefit of the writer who we need to give those credits to because
that's true.
I mean, those were in the script, so
right.
I just want to make sure we're not confusing writing and directing and who gets credit for what.
Okay, now do you think it was all in the writing, or do you think maybe he put a little bit of that in there himself? Is there a possibility that he was like, it'd be kind of cool to do this, or I agree that it was probably the writer, but Fincher could have interjected and put some of his own style in there.
He could have, but I think without any evidence, we'd have to give it to the writer. I mean, if Kevin Spacey's character says, "Hey, the package is going to be here at 7:00,"
Right. Well,
I mean, that's a spoken line.
Yeah.
I'd give that to the writer.
Okay.
The street numbers, though, you're right. The street numbers. I mean, I can't. That could be a production design, or it could be Fincher himself.
Right.
I mean, you know.
No, that's a good point.
And I feel like because I feel like there's that kind of detail in all of the Fincher films that I've seen. I feel like that attention to detail can be attributed at least in part to the director as well. I don't disagree that a lot of that stuff may have been written into the script, but there's just so many little things that get so much attention in Fincher films that I have to give him a certain amount of credit for it.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and we'll move on to our fourth and final round, which is overall. Hit the bell, monkey. Good boy. All right. Let's start with Mark.
All right. In the interest of full disclosure, I saw Seven in the theater when it came out. I will never forget the day after the Oscars, which I believe were on a Monday night, when Kevin Spacey won the supporting actor for The Usual Suspects. I remember going to Suncoast the very next day to buy Seven on Laserdisc and being super psyched about it. And then I later on bought the Criterion collection of Seven, which came with all types of... You could go through frame by frame and look at all the photos of Sloth and watch them deteriorate on the CAV Laserdisc. And it was, at the time for me, one of the coolest movies ever made. So... Zodiac had a lot to live up to going into my viewing of that, and I'm afraid it just didn't make the cut. I didn't like how it jumps around through time. All of a sudden it's 3 weeks later, and now it's 6 months later, and now it's 9 years later, and I again, the unsatisfying ending. Towards the end, the Zodiac killer really kind of disappears, and it really becomes about the Ruffalo and Gyllenhaal's obsession with, finding this guy, and I didn't see how it got there or where that was going. So it's 7 in a landslide.
All right. Sam?
Well, I think overall, to me, it comes down to the fact that Zodiac was not as engaging as Seven was. It was a bunch of, oh, this happened, and then, oh, this guy might have done it. See ya. And then, and it was stretched out, 2 hour and 37 minutes, about 30 minutes more than Seven. I think Seven did its business, and it got out of there, gave you some great performances. And where these films fit in Fincher's filmography is very interesting in that, I always thought The Game came before Seven, and I was delighted, actually intrigued to find out that, he did Alien 3 first, and then Seven, and then The Game, and then what a lot would consider his pinnacle film, Fight Club, and then to Panic Room, which I don't really understand. I'm not a big Panic Room fan. And then to Zodiac, which it makes sense for this point of his career that he was getting bigger budgets and really kind of allowed to kind of explore, but it just didn't have the heart that Seven, and I won't watch Zodiac for the third time. I saw it once in the theater, once here, but I probably definitely will watch Seven. It's in my collection, and I enjoyed watching it.
All right. Right on. And Sam, I just want to say something. Panic Room, Jodie Foster is hot, and I would probably shoot someone for her. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
That's a bad joke. Sorry. Go ahead, Gabe.
Yeah, that was pretty bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, is everybody there? I can't hear anybody.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, I couldn't hear anybody. I was like, "Oh my god, we got lost." I'm
just
all
to
alone
let
again.
everyone know at home, we've been having a few technical problems tonight, so it's not out of the ordinary for us to just keep talking and no one be there. Except that happens all the time when I'm alone at home, and
Right.
So go ahead.
But I hear all that. Anyway, Yeah, I think, like I said before, and like Mark, I had to kind of, disclose the truth. Seven is one of my favorite movies of all time. I don't know that it's way up at the top, but it's definitely in my top movies. And I just enjoy it on so many different levels. It's hard to say that with a movie that's that disturbing, but I just think it's a beautifully shot movie. One thing that we didn't really talk about is cinematography, and which is another great thing with David Fincher movies. The cinematography is just beautiful, and there's a shot in Seven that I just love. There's a part where Mills he's been chasing down the suspect through the rain in this dark, dismal city, and he gets whacked on the head. He loses a gun. He falls down, and the suspect stands over him with the gun pointed at his head. And there's this one shot from kind of a worm's eye view of the gun, and the gun is in focus. And then as you go up his arm, he kind of goes out of focus, and you can't get a look at the suspect. You can't see the killer, and the rain is just falling in torrents. And I just think that one shot is just so beautiful to me. I'm like, it's just an amazing shot. I just love the cinematography in Seven. They use this process called bleach bypass, where they actually bypass one of the steps in the developing process, and it actually the way they describe it, it's almost like having kind of color over top of a black and white image. So it creates this really kind of contrasty, very muted kind of colors, grainy kind of look, and I love it. And Zodiac was also I was really impressed with how well they did the low light stuff in Zodiac. How you can see what's happening, but the lighting is so minimal. And the cinematography in that is beautiful as well. And it's a great movie. And if you think about the work that would go into making a movie of that scope and of that scale, you just really have to be impressed. It's like, wow, they pulled it off. Sure, they spent twice as much as they did on Seven, but they pulled it off. But in the end, I think Mark has mentioned rewatchability before. Seven is a movie I would rewatch. Zodiac I would happily rewatch, but I probably wouldn't choose to if I didn't have to.
Right.
So I think Seven in a landslide for me too.
All right, Tom.
Oh man, here we go. I've been kind of bashing on Seven all night, but I would have to say when you put them side by side, I think Seven is the better movie. I think Zodiac had better acting and it had better directing, but I think when you're looking at the movie as a whole, Seven is much more entertaining. It's very satisfying. It's a complete story. We're suckers for lists. We just love lists. Everything's got to be made into lists and categorized in lists. And when you present filmgoers with this idea that, hey, this killer is going to go through the 7 deadly sins, people are like, oh, fantastic. I know when this movie is going to be approaching an ending. And and it just sucks you in. You can't wait to find out, what's Lust going to be? I'm really looking forward to that one. It's as much as Brad Pitt drives me nuts in this movie, I thought Seven was a better movie, and I first saw it like 12 years ago on video, and this was the first time going back to it, and it had this place in my mind, and I kind of dismissed it. I'm like, oh yeah, it's probably not as good as I remember it, but it was even better than I remembered it, and I really, really liked it. I'm not a big violence person. I don't know, for some reason, ever since I had kids, I'm just not real big into violence in movies anymore. But this one, I ate it up. I thought it was a great story. When Spacey walks into the precinct and starts yelling "Lieutenant," I got chills, and it was so good, and I really, really, really liked it. just if I have to choose obviously the directing and acting, I go with Zodiac. But as a movie as a whole, I'd have to choose Seven, and it's probably going to wind up on my shelf by the end of the week.
All right. Right on. Okay, saying that, is there anything that you guys would have changed? Is there something that, if you could go back in and like whisper in Fincher's ear and tell him, maybe you want to change this up, what would it be for either film?
Brad Pitt sucks. Gabe talked earlier about the shot at the end of the chase scene, which I completely agree with him. Looks amazing. But the weakest part of Seven for me was that chase scene.
Oh yeah,
I mean, the end shot sort of makes up for it, but it's just poorly executed, and it just kind of it almost didn't even need that kind of action in the movie. And I don't know. I'd tighten that up or shore that up, or I don't know, maybe even take it out or make it shorter. I don't know, but I'd find a way to remove that from the film, I guess.
That's a great point.
All right. Sam, Gabe.
Well, I think, in some ways, Mark, there was a different kind of reality to that chase scene that you don't normally see in movies. He was dealing with real people and pushing them aside, and it wasn't like he knew exactly where the killer was going. There were one or two confusing shots maybe in there, but I like that. I actually like that scene. It gave some action and beef to it, and kind of showed off the youth and the agility of Mills, and how he kind of throws his way into and just goes off half cocked basically, and it almost cost him his life.
Yep. All right, Gabe, any?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I can see what you're saying on that scene, Mark. It maybe went a little long. I never thought about it. It never really disturbed me that much, but it may have been a little bit long. Because we're getting the idea that Mills is having a hard time catching up to him. And this killer is almost supernatural on a certain level. He's always a step ahead. He flies over the railing like a superhero, this kind of stuff, and he's almost supernatural. They could have maybe shortened that a bit. I don't know. I'd have a hard time changing very much in Seven, to be honest with you. In Zodiac, now this may be because I watched the director's cut, and they don't. As far as I can tell, they don't vary very, very much. But I've never seen the actual theatrical release. I think maybe you could have shortened that up. I think you could have really made Zodiac a little bit more succinct, and kind of shortened it up, because it was already close to 3 hours. It was like two. The version I watched was like 2:42 or something like that. I just feel like you could have shortened that up and still gotten the same effect out of it.
All right. Well, I guess I have two questions. Well, yeah, two questions, and then we'll get to one to fight.
Can I put in something real quick?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead, Sam.
I forgot to say, Carrot Top would replace Mark Ruffalo, and Willard Scott actually would replace Jake Gyllenhaal. So different dynamic.
That is fantastic.
Oh, dude, yeah, I don't know, the Donald Duck joke. I thought that was funny.
Well, the first one is: could you see anyone else directing either one of these films? That's going to be the first part of the question, and then I want to know the second. The second part is: what is your favorite David Fincher film? And we'll start off with. I'm going to close my eyes and pick. It's Sam.
If I could choose a different director, maybe Zodiac. 'Cause I would never want to take away Seven. Like I really enjoy that film, and it brings good memories to me, or just feelings when I watch it. I know that sounds weird because of the subject matter, but it's just a different type of storytelling. Zodiac, a different director, possibly. Oliver Stone, do it JFK style, and
damn it, that's what I was going to say. Damn it.
But my favorite Fincher film, to keep it short, I'd probably have to say Fight Club.
All right, Tom.
At first I'd say the music video for "Straight Up" by Paul Abdul. I think there's some really great camera work in there. But you said movie, so I'm going to stick with that. I just want to remind everyone. I just wanted to remind everybody that he directed Paul Abdul videos at one point. I really like Fight Club and Benjamin Button. I thought they were both really great, but I'd have to say The Game is my favorite one. It's so precise and tight, and it's one of my favorite movie-going memories is I completely suspended my disbelief and let that movie suck me in up to the very last moment, and I loved every minute of the ride. It was so much fun, and I love going back and watching it again and all the little pieces. And I don't want to give anything away because we didn't say we're going to talk about The Game, and maybe people haven't listened to it or watched it. But I'd just say The Game is my favorite Fincher film. And I don't have any recommendations for new directors for either film. I think they belong to Fincher. They're his.
Okay. Gabe?
Yeah. As far as I would have to say that, I would never take Se7en away from Fincher either. So if I were to select a different director for Zodiac, I think I would have to go with kind of a documentary style. It felt more like a documentary, and I may have actually enjoyed it more as a legitimate documentary. Maybe we could do a Ken Burns kind of take on Zodiac. That's. After Sam took my first choice, that's all I could think of.
It's Ken Burns?
All right. Yeah. So, easily, hands down, my favorite David Fincher movie is Fight Club. Fight Club might be one of my favorite movies of all time. And it's amazing that even after you know the twist, even after you've seen it as many times as I have, that you can get something new out of it every time. And I think Tom addressed the same kind of thing that I was talking about with The Game is the detail. There's just an amazing detail to it, and there's just this rewatchability to it. Mm-hmm. And I don't know. There's something about Fight Club that I enjoy so much. And I think it transcends my good friend Dennis had never seen it, and we just happened to watch it just the other night. And when we got done, he said to me, it's not really about fighting that much, is it? And I'm like, thank you for saying that, because that's what everybody thought it was about. Mm-hmm. Because of the name Fight Club, and because there are some graphic fight scenes in it, that's all it's about. It's about guys getting together and beating the shit out of each other. That's not what it's about at all. And it's satisfying to me that it conveys something much more than what it is on the surface. So Fight Club, by far my favorite Fincher movie.
Now, I do have to say that after I saw Fight Club in the theater, I wanted to go out and fight. Like, honestly, it pumped me up, and I just wanted to go out and fight. And it could have been the couple of beers that I had before. But, that's...
But you wanted to fight because you were fighting against the capitalist influence.
That's right. Yeah.
And you didn't just want to beat people up. You wanted to.
Well, maybe
you wanted to beat meaning into their lives.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, Mark.
I'd stick with Fincher for Se7en, and I would go with Sam Mendes to do Zodiac.
Wow.
He did Road to Perdition. That kind of. Maybe the cinematography is kind of similar. He directed Gyllenhaal and Jarhead. I'm thinking maybe that could be up his alley, maybe.
Right.
But that's just going off the top of my head. And my favorite Fincher movie's got to be Se7en. When I was rewatching this, I just remember back to all the times where I would watch certain chapters on the Laserdisc like over and over and over again. I cannot tell you how many times I've watched the opening credit sequence of the movie with the Nine Inch Nails score. And when we got to the end where they're all in the car, I started mouthing the dialogue because I'd watched it and listened to it so many times. It was like hearing a song you hadn't heard in a while, and all the lyrics start coming back to you. I knew everything everyone was going to say before they were going to say it. So if that doesn't make Se7en my favorite Fincher movie, then I don't know what can.
All right. Let's figure out who won, all right?
Ladies and gentlemen, your winner by decision is Se7en.
Yeah, there you go. Some unhappy Zodiac fans there, but yeah, 7-1, 14-2.
Oh, damn.
14-2.
Wow.
I don't know who's going to win tonight. I'm so excited.
Well, I don't think that score really actually it gives justice to how quality both films really were.
Right, yeah.
I think we just all kind of feel pretty strongly about Seven, and you know, it's not like Zodiac was a terrible movie by any means. I enjoyed it immensely.
Now, before we get to our recommendations for the night, Mark, do you have our Oscar picks?
I was just going to bring that up if you weren't going to say anything. Yes,
right.
I have tallied the results from the Oscar picks.
All right.
And I guess I'll start at the bottom, which would begin with yours truly. I didn't get any of them right.
Congratulations, Mark.
I had James Franco, Michelle Williams, David Fincher, and Toy Story 3. So, yeah, I was total offer. Fourth place would be Sam. He was correct on the King's Speech. Third place was Mike.
Yeah.
Who, King's Speech for Best Picture and Natalie Portman. Tom comes in second. He delivered on all of them except for Best Director, where he picked David Fincher. And Gabe got them all correct.
Wow.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice out of you, Gabe.
Yeah. Well, if I ever had any luck, that was it right then, because I hadn't seen hardly any of those movies. So.
Well, now
Sure.
I kind of want to point out the fact that if we ever do get together to watch another movie again, and we all walk out except for Gabe because he's drowned in a bucket of popcorn, it wasn't me. All right. Although Gabe, you don't win anything; you just win our praise and possibility of drowning in popcorn later.
Yeah, that's all I want.
Death by popcorn?
Yes.
Oh, your praise
is meaningless. But I've always wanted to die in a vat of popcorn.
Now, is there anything you guys want to add about the Academy Awards? To be honest, I only watched the last 15 minutes of this. Well, 15 minutes, half hour of the show. I only watched the big categories because I was kind of busy doing other things, like not watching the Academy Awards. So, anyone want to say anything about it?
Kind of, sort of related to what we've talked about tonight. I was surprised that nobody picked Social Network as their favorite Fincher movie. I was surprised and happy. I'm not a Social Network fan, so I found the awards to be very agreeable.
All right, Gabe.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of people saying that the Academy Awards were kind of boring this year. And I don't know that I necessarily felt that. They always seem to kind of stretch out and go a little long. But I think the thing that I noticed the most was the hosts. I thought Anne Hathaway did a good job. She kind of had some excitement, and she's nice to look at and all that. But James Franco just didn't seem like he was into it. It's like he couldn't even read the teleprompter. I just didn't think he did a good job. And he may be a stellar actor, but I'm not sure he's, cut out for TV hosts. And as far as the choices, I think they pretty much made sense.
Well, I don't think, of course, because you won.
Well, yeah, I agree with the Academy completely. No, I just don't feel like there were any real great surprises. Once I saw how the major awards were lining up, it was.
Sorry about that, guys. Just really quick, my computer decided to just shut down on me. It's happened before. It's starting to happen more frequently. So, Gabe, is there anything else you want to add? I don't even remember where we were.
No, I don't think there's any more. I had to add. The computer knew when I was done.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
Machines are rising. They're going to control us all.
Well, they are. Sam or Mark or anyone else about the Oscars?
I think the awards were on par. The telecast was bad. You'll see. I don't think you'll see those hosts ever again. And that's And what about creepy Bob Hope, like a warning that if you better not screw up, or Bob Hope will be more fully realized for the next telecast, and he can host whole segments and wing out the zingers all night long. But that's all I got to say on that. Let's put it.
That's awesome. All right, well, let's move on to our recommendations for this fight. I want to point out real quick. I watched two recommendations that have been given on the show. The first one I watched was Rampage, and I'll just say that it took me 3 tries to watch it. Like I had to walk away a couple times, and then I finally finished watching it. I like the whole idea of the film. Yui Ball still bugs me, but I like the whole idea of the film, and I think the actor himself was actually, I think he was the best part of the film. He was very intense, and he wasn't like intense like Charlie Sheen intense, coming at you winning, but just a very quiet intensity. Like it was all in his eyes. But I also watched maybe 2 weeks ago, Exit Through the Gift Shop, and I loved it.
Oh, I love that movie.
Absolutely loved it. So with that being said, let's go on with our recommendations. We'll start with Gabe.
Well, I'm going to go with a David Fincher recommendation, but a very short form one.
Oh, okay.
I think people should go out on YouTube or wherever and find the video for Nine Inch Nails' song "Only." It's a video that was directed by David Fincher, and it's really kind of cool.
All right, Mark.
I completely forgot to make a pick for tonight. But I was on the Lost Mirror Moments podcast this last weekend, and I talked a whole lot about a documentary from 2007 called The King of Kong, A Fistful of Quarters.
Oh, yeah.
And it's about Billy Mitchell, who's a world champion video game player. He probably holds the records of like 20 classic video games. And it's about Steve Wiebe, this middle school teacher from Washington, the state of Washington, who goes out to challenge the world record of Donkey Kong. And it's a really good movie.
All right. Tom?
I'm a sucker for movies about movies. The Player and RKO 281 are both pretty awesome. But I'm going to recommend a documentary called Lost in La Mancha. And it's about the 2000 production of a man, Don Quixote, basically, that Terry Gilliam tried putting together with Johnny Depp. So about 11 years ago. And anybody who wants to know what can go wrong on a film set should watch this movie. It is a catastrophe of epic proportions. At one point, you're laughing and like, oh, I can't believe how crazy this is. And by the end of the film, you're crying because it's really sad how far this film falls apart. But only just recently did Terry Gilliam get the rights to the screenplay back, and they're back working on production and trying to get funding again for this. And I hope there's a happy ending at the end of this. But if you want to see some major celluloid carnage, I would recommend Lost in La Mancha.
That's a good pick.
All right.
Thanks.
Sam.
That is a fantastic pick, Tom. But my pick this week, since we're talking about killers, is the 2002 American biopic Dahmer. This look at the American serial killer Jeffrey Dahmer stars a younger Jeremy Renner. What I like about the film is that it uses alternate timelines. Basically, the present of the film runs in ordinary chronological order, and then the flashbacks go in reverse order so that we see Dahmer as he gets younger until we arrive back at the very first murder. It's really a different take on a biopic with a strong performance by Jeremy Renner, and there's also some classic character work from Bruce Davison, a shout-out from Mark, who played Dr. Douglas Brooks on Lost. This movie has been... I think this movie's been given a bum deal, and it's been panned by critics and audiences alike. But I think it's worthy. There's some good performance in there. Definitely check it out. It's available on Netflix, and you should put it on your queue today.
All right. Well, mine is one that I watched right after I watched Exit Through the Gift Shop, and it's called It Might Get Loud. It's a documentary on the electric guitar from the point of view of The Edge, Jimmy Page, and Jack White. And I am a huge Jimmy Page fan, so it was awesome seeing him. Not really crazy about The Edge, but I really kind of got a lot of respect from watching it for him. And Jack White, didn't really know a lot, and I think it's going to make me listen to more White Stripes, even though, yes, I know the White Stripes are broke up, but I can still listen to their music because they didn't take it off the interweb yet. So, yeah, I think that's it, fellas, except for saying what our next fight is going to be. And it's a special fight since baseball is going to be starting up. We've gone ahead and, we've pulled out Charlie Sheen and Tom Berenger and that guy from L.A. Law. Major League versus Bull Durham. So we'll see which is the better baseball film. Maybe not better baseball film, but just better film that happens to have baseballs in it. Are there any last words from any of you? Sam?
No, it's another great show. Looking forward to the next. And you can check me out now Tuesday nights, 6 p.m. Central Standard Time at Des Moines Amplified. And the show's called Screen Scene.
All right. I do have to say that I enjoyed watching it last night. And Tom was on there discussing Oscar stuff. I hope to try. I want to try and catch it live every Tuesday. But you can also... can you also subscribe to it like a podcast, Sam?
Not sure at this time,
Okay.
But maybe we want to do a live Cinesmack segment, maybe a shorter one at some point.
Okay, yeah, that'd be awesome. I'd love to do that. Mark?
I don't have much to say. You can follow me on Twitter. I'm Jeremy Bentham42. And I guess peace and long life, live long and prosper, I guess.
Wow.
Because I'm a nerd.
I got that. We got that. Hey, Gabe, go ahead.
Well, I just want to say thanks to anybody out there who's listening, and please, feel free to contact us. Let us know your comments. Give us your suggestions as far as future showdowns you'd like to see. Let us know what you think, because right now we're kind of doing this for fun, but we'd like to hear your feedback and get better at what we're doing here. So, right now, I keep getting a lot of trouble about not working on Mike's website or my website. Someday we'll have websites you can go to, but in the meantime, you can find us on Facebook, and you can find my profile on Facebook if you're interested in friending me and learning more.
Right on. Well, that goes for, I think, all of us. A big thank you to everyone that listens. And I haven't gotten really any feedback in the Cinesmack email box, so I better say cinesmack@gmail.com in case you want to send us any of your future fight picks. We would be glad to hear any ideas that you guys might have. And last but not least, Tom.
I'm wrapping up OscarRadar.com for the season. Next year, it'll probably be under the management of Gabe Rollwald since he kicked my ass. So no, we'll be back. We'll be back probably late summer when the films start picking up, and we're going to add one or two more categories. So director or best actor, actress, we might start adding those, and then we'll have 3 radars every week. Tracking the Oscar nominees as soon as the season starts heating up again. That's it for me.
All right, just real quick, what's going to be the first pick that hits the radar this year?
The Abraham Lincoln biopic that Spielberg's putting together with Daniel Day-Lewis. I think director, actor, picture. If he does half as good a job as he usually does, it'll at the very least get one of those 10 nominations that they're handing out now.
I can't wait to see Abraham Lincoln walk into a store and say, "I drink your milkshake." I think it'd be awesome.
Wasn't he lactose intolerant? I made that up.
I don't know. I know he couldn't lie.
He was
according to the Geico commercials.
He was a fan of the theater. I know that.
Yeah.
I'm
sure.
sorry,
You guys laugh
too
at that,
soon?
but you don't listen
to
to
the
my Jodie Foster.
Oh, nice one. That's hilarious.
I see how it is. You don't listen. You don't laugh at my Jodie Foster, but you laugh. Yeah. Yeah. You can follow Cinesmack on Twitter and on Facebook. Just type in Cinesmack. You should be able to find us. And like I said, you can email us anything you want. You want to disagree with us? You want to give us a little bit more detail on something maybe we missed? You can email us at cinesmack@gmail.com. And for Sam, for Mark, for Tom, and for Gabe, this is Mike. Go out, catch a flick.
Ernest Hemingway once wrote, "The world is a fine place and worth fighting for." I agree with the second part.
All right, and in second place, we had Tom, who guessed correctly on all of them except for he had David Fincher for Best Director. And our first place winner is Gabe, who picked all 4 major categories correctly.
Tom, you ignorant slut.
This has been a test of the Southsider Studios podcast system. This was only a test. If this were a true lack of entertainment, your head would explode. Go to iTunes and subscribe to our feed. Just search Southsider Studios.